This video is sponsored by Squarespace. So today we're going to see which Pokemon can beat Pokemon Yellow faster, Clefable or Wigglytuff. I thought that it made sense to do this video because look at the two. They're so similar. They have the same kind of design concept, like they're like pink and white. They are the same typing. They're both normal types in Generation 1. Clefable did get changed to the Fairy type in Generation 6. They also have the same method of evolution. They use a Moonstone. They both have fast leveling rates, which makes them easy to compare in these videos. And they also have fantastic hair. Like, look at these cute little, tufts and swirls. It seemed like these two Pokemon had to go head to head. And then I learned a little bit more about these Pokemon. Anyways, I'll get into that in a second. Here are the rules for the playthroughs today. I've left them in the description so that you can reference them later if you need to. I'll be judging my performance with each Pokemon based on 4 metrics: real time, resets, level, and game time. To keep things fair between these two, I use a GameShark code to give my Pokemon perfect DVs at the start. It's the reason that their health looks strange during the first rival fight, by the way. If you're curious about playing one of these challenges yourself, I use the Pokemon Universal Randomizer to replace my starter, and I've also left the GameShark codes that I use to set their DVs to perfect in the description. Now, let's get back to comparing these two Pokemon. Continuing with similarities, their move pools are almost identical. They get the same TMs, however, Clefable does get one more, TM 35 for Metronome. They both start with Sing and Double Slap, but here's where the similarities end. Clefable gets Minimize and Metronome, while Wigglytuff gets Disable and Defense Curl. Minimize is absolutely fantastic, it raises evasion, and we all know how powerful that is because it's the favorite tactic of this game's nightmarish AI. Another advantage of this move is that it triggers the badge boost glitch. In the comments, I've seen some skepticism about if moves like Double Team or Minimize really do trigger it. Well, recently, to improve the quality of the content, I've been digging through Pokemon Yellow's RAM. In this search, I found the memory address where my Pokemon's stats are stored during battle. I'm a giant nerd apparently. It's a miracle that I have a girlfriend. When I send out Clefable in this fight, you'll see this area populate with values. If we look at Clefable's summary page, we can see that its attack is 44. The value is stored here, and right now it's actually 49. That's because I'm already receiving the passive badge boost. This is its intended design. Now when I use Minimize, what we should see is that the value of my attack doesn't increase. But in this case, it does increase. So yeah, my attack stat is getting the badge boost. If the enemy alters my other stats, like with Leer or something like that, the value increases again. If I use Double Team, it also triggers the badge boost. So here's the proof that moves like Double Team and Minimize do trigger it. When I set up the rules for these challenges, I was very careful to only ban the TM for Double Team, because some Pokemon learn these moves through level up, and it's sort of a part of the flavor of the Pokemon, like Minimize being a part of the awful flavor that is Grimer. So today my rules don't actually ban the use of Minimize, so Clefable can use it if it needs it. Beyond these stat-raising moves, Clefable gets access to Metronome, which I'm going to talk about later. It's really not that cool, believe me. And Wigglytuff gets access to Disable, which you'd think is completely useless in Generation 1, but I actually discovered something about it while I was doing these playthroughs that gives it a strange niche depending on how you want to play Wigglytuff's early game. Now, here's the major difference between these two Pokemon, and that's their base stats. Clefable is fairly balanced. It has 95 HP, 70 attack, 73 defense, 85 special, and 60 speed. It's on the slow side, but after accumulating some stat experience and Koga's badge, this pink cutie is probably going to outspeed most of its opponents. Maybe Aerodactyl and Jolteon would have a chance of moving first. 85 special is really great considering the type diversity of Clefable's move pool, and 70 attack means that its normal type, same type attack bonus moves are still going to be viable to use. So how do things stand for Wigglytuff? Well, aside from the awesome hair and the extremely cute design, it gets the short stick here. 140 HP, 70 attack, 45 defense, 50 special, and 45 speed. So it ties Clefable's attack, and its defense, special, and speed are all just worse, with the only stat that's higher being its HP. My prediction for today is that Clefable is gonna win, and most of you seem to think the same thing. However, these versus videos haven't always played out the way that I expect them to, like in this case, so I think I still need to test it. Now, let's get into the playthroughs. Because I'm playing both of these playthroughs myself, I realize that there's an inherent advantage to whichever Pokemon I play second. I can take what I learned from the first playthrough and apply it to the second. Normally, I alternate back and forth between each Pokemon, but for this video, I'm trying a different approach. I played each Pokemon multiple times in a row, looking for everything that I could find to optimize their results. Once I had a result that I was satisfied with, I moved on to the next Pokemon. Because Wigglytuff is clearly the statistical underdog, I let it go second. Please remember that I approach these videos with curiosity in mind. I just want to get the best possible time that I can with each Pokemon, and then present the results to all of you. Also, normally I show my first playthrough with each Pokemon, but today I'll be showing the best playthrough that I did, and then I'll summarize all of my results at the end of the video. I nicknamed my Wigglytuff Hope because I really hope that it's going to get a competitive result. However, both of these Pokemon have a lot working against them in the early game. You can see it here already in the first rival fight. Double Slap only has 85% accuracy and only 10 PP. This move is trash. A normal move with a small PP is very bad, especially when you're competing with Brock. It isn't really a problem yet though. Wigglytuff defeats the rival and levels up to level 6. This thing also has a lot of health, by the way. On Route 1, I pick up the free potion, and I'm going to be prioritizing collecting these in the early game for a strategy that I want to employ a little bit later on. I grab some items in the mart, and then I head north to the forest. And here's the first downside to Double Slap. If I want to defeat the bug catchers here for their extra experience yield, I'll need to head back to Viridian City to heal to get my PP back. Honestly, because of how bad Double Slap is though, it ends up being after every single fight, so the fastest way to proceed is just skipping all the trainer battles and facing the final bug catcher, unlocking access to Pewter City's center. I faced the junior trainer in the gym for trainer experience, and then after that, grinding on wild Pokemon is just the fastest way. Making your way back to the trainers in Viridian Forest, you have to fight a lot of wild Pokemon, and either you run away or you fight them, and then you have less PP on Double Slap. And then you get to the trainer and it's like, should you even fight them? Because you might have to struggle. That would be awful, obviously, for time, so today I'm just going to fight wild Pokemon. It also turns out that by facing wild Pokemon, I accumulate more stat experience than I would facing trainers, so this makes Wigglytuff slightly stronger for the rest of the playthrough than it would be if I just faced trainers here. While I train, I'll mention a third option for a strategy here. You can find a Metapod and waste all your PP so that you can use Struggle to proceed through the forest and fight every single trainer, using potions along the way to heal up. I did test this strat, and it seems slightly faster than grinding. However, it generates less stat experience, and it also consumes all your potions in the process. And I really want those potions for after Brock. I'll explain why in a little bit. Today, maybe I should have done the struggle strat. Anyways, we'll get to that. At level 14, I'm finished training. I head back to the Pokemon Center, heal, and then I look for a Metapod. Wigglytuff can't defeat Brock at this level with any degree of reliability. If I start the fight with full PP, I just can't deplete it all in time. But against this Metapod, I can spam out all my Disable and Sing PP, as well as almost all of my Defense Curl PP, and that puts me into a position where victory is a likely outcome. Brock opens with Geodude. I set up 6 Defense Curls as fast as possible to minimize the amount of damage that I take. After that, it's time to slap some rocks. It takes time, but I reliably knock the Geodude out. I've even still got 4 PP left for the Onyx. I miss first turn. That's annoying. Onyx uses Bind, and that's the one move that I really don't want to see. It hits 4 times before I finally slap Brock's Snake. With the final 2 double slaps that connect, I have excellent luck and I take Onyx into orange health with 2 5 hits. Now I've depleted my PP and it's time to struggle. In Generation 1, it's a normal move with 40 power, so Wigglytuff gets the same type attack bonus, and this honestly makes Struggle deal a decent amount of damage to Onyx. However, with the extra damage, I'm also taking Recoil, and Onyx has softened me up with Screech. It was a tense fight, but I managed to win with 10 hit points remaining. Wigglytuff clocks in with a time of 12 minutes and 54 seconds. Now, this is where I make my first mistake of the run. Remember all those potions that I intentionally saved up? Yeah, those were so that I could use Struggle on Route 3. But today I forgot this and I accidentally healed, so Double Slap has to be enough. This means that I have to take trips back to Pewter to heal between trainers, and this wastes a little bit of time. I skipped the heal outside of Mount Moon because I grabbed the TM for Water Gun right inside the entrance. This gives Wigglytuff more PP. Quite frankly, I would choose to skip this if I did this playthrough again. It's just a waste of time. Plus, along the way you can run into more wild Pokemon. After that, I pick up the rare candy and then I grab Mega Punch. Finally a move that is better than Double Slap. I'm so excited about this. This powerful move lets me speed past the Super Nerd and obtain the most important item in the entire run, the Dome Fossil. I defeat Jesse and James with ease, and now it's time for Cerulean City. Because I have a more powerful physical move, I'm gonna face Misty first. She opens with Staryu. It uses Tackle, gets a crit, doing only 8 damage, and then Mega Punch takes it to the red. The Starfish gets another crit with Water Gun, doing a lot more, and then it faints. Starmie's next, and Wigglytuff's special stat won't let me tank very many Bubble Beams, so I decide to use Sing first turn. Starmie gets a crit with Water Gun, taking me to 29 health, and then Sing misses. Ugh, this isn't good. Starmie uses Tackle, gets a 4th crit, but Wigglytuff hangs on with red health. Please Sing, please connect. Starmie falls asleep, I use Mega Punch for 1/3, I just need this thing to keep snoozing. It does, and Wigglytuff takes the win. 17 minutes and 47 seconds. As a reward, Misty gives me the TM for Bubble Beam, which I immediately use, teaching it in the place of Sing. It's going to be very useful for speeding things up on Nugget Bridge. The rival here is honestly a pushover. Mega Punch 1 hits the Spearow, Bubble Beam helps here to knock the Sandshrew out, and then Mega Punch 1 hits the Rattata and the Eevee. So now it's time for the steamrolling to begin. Things start feeling much better from here on out with Wigglytuff. All the trainers on this bridge are a breeze, even the guy who has the Mankey. After taking care of all of them, I use an Elixir to skip Helion Cerulean again, and then I proceed south to Vermilion, grabbing a hidden full restore along the way. On the SSN, I grab the TM for Rest, and today this is part of my core strategy. Wigglytuff's incredible HP stat sort of scream for this move to be used. After that, I get Body Slam, which is going to be Wigglytuff's go-to move for most of the playthrough. Yes, not all of it. Bubble Beam is useful against the Gentleman, and I grab the rare candy. Once again, I crush the rival with ease. In Surge's gym, the trash can puzzle is already solved thanks to Greg, so there's no RNG affecting these Pokemon's times. I used to pause the timer here, but that created discrepancies in the game time at the finish. So just solving this puzzle automatically is the best way forward to remove this RNG, while keeping both of the metrics accurate. Surge sends out Raichu, and there's no way I'm going to move first against it. And apparently he wants to keep it that way. He uses X speed, I use Body Slam, and Wigglytuff quite frankly has a great body to slam with. And so much so that it causes paralysis. So now I'm faster and Raichu faints, not even getting to use a single move. Wigglytuff clocks in with a time of 24 minutes and 49 seconds. Now, how will Clefable do in the early portions of the game? Let's find out. I nickname it Believe because I believe that it's going to win. This is 3 characters longer than Wigglytuff's name. I realize that. That means that the game will have to regularly render 3 more characters, and that'll slow things down just a little bit. But my belief is so strong that I don't even think this is going to matter. The first rival fight is extra easy with Double Slap because I got a critical hit. That's the advantage of having a higher speed stat. Now, what's the best approach to the early game for Clefable? There are 2 options. The first is consistent and very slow, and the other is fast, unpredictable, and extremely entertaining. I felt that the entertainment factor was important, but I also just think that this is the best way for Clefable to manage this portion of the game. So today, I'm going to be using Metronome. Without it, I'd have to rely on Minimize and Double Slap against Brock, and despite that being the strategy that I first tested, the PP of Double Slap really does hold me back. Once it's depleted, if I wanted to get to Struggle, I would have to use Metronome anyways, so it just makes sense to start with Metronome. But this move has a big downside. It can defeat Brock in 2 turns, but it can also do a lot of other things. So here are some of them, and all of these occurred while I was doing these playthroughs. Metronome chooses Transform, and Clefable becomes Geodude with 5 PP left for Tackle. Metronome chooses Awful Moves over and over, and Brock defeats you straight up. Metronome chooses electric moves over and over, giving Brock time to deal a lot of damage to you. And finally, the most interesting and most frustrating one is that Metronome chooses Self-Destruct or Explosion and knocks me out. So yeah, in that situation, I should have just used Double Slap. So because of all of this unpredictability, the most important thing is saving in front of Brock. After that, I might have to reset 1 or 2 times, but I'm still going to clock in with a fast time once Metronome manages to win. So how did Metronome do in this playthrough specifically? Okay, turn 1, Thunder. Turn 2, Comet Punch. Turn 3, Payday. This is not going well. Turn 4, Minimize, I guess. It's also on my moveset. It's kind of frustrating. Turn 5, Toxic. Turn 6, Fury Attack. Turn 7, Swords Dance. Honestly, that's okay, but it won't make Double Slap good enough to knock the Onyx out. I've only got 3 PP left. Because of that, I got a bit indecisive, and I moved back and forth between Double Slap and Metronome over the next 2 turns. Luckily, on Metronome's 8th use, it uses Tri Attack. I guess it's a normal move, which is annoying, but it does so much to Geodude because I previously had Swords Dance. It's in red health now, so I can take it out with Double Slap. But Geodude is tough. hangs on and takes Clefable all the way down to 1 hit point before fainting. Metronome selects Clamp and finishes it off. Like, couldn't have I got Clamp earlier on? That would have been way better. So I only have 1 PP of Metronome left and 1 hit point left. Onyx outspeeds, uses Screech, misses. I use Metronome and it selects Pedal Dance. 4 times damage. It knocks the Onyx out in a single hit. So today I'm proceeding with no resets, and Clefable clocks in with a time of 4 minutes and 41 seconds. For Clefable, the next route presents the same problem that it did for Wigglytuff. I have to constantly make trips back to Pewter City to heal because Double Slap is awful. After making this video, I genuinely have discovered a deep and lasting hatred of this move. Against the second trainer here, I run out of PP and I have to resort to using Metronome. Unfortunately, it doesn't go well and Clefable gets its first reset. This is the downside of using this gambling move. In Mount Moon, I make the same choices that I did with Wigglytuff. I grab Water Gun, the Rare Candy, and Mega Punch. I could probably skip Water Gun here again, but I picked it up with both Pokemon, so it's fair. I grab the Dome Fossil, and with that, I'm escaping the cave that ruined an entire weekend of my life when I was a kid. I choose to face Misty first, with Clefable as well. My decent special stat makes her water types much less effective. Misty starts with Staryu. I take it out over the first 2 turns with Mega Punch, and move on to Starmie with Green Health. But the game is determined to punish me for my lucky win against Brock, and Starmie gets a crit with Bubble Beam doing so much damage. Clefable survives, does 1/3, but Starmie finishes me off with a critical hit tackle. That's my second reset for Clefable. The next fight, I crit the Staryu and finish it in 1 hit. The Starmie gets another Bubble Beam, this time lowering my speed, so I decide to use Sing just to be a little bit safer. As safe as you can be with a really inaccurate move. With Generation 1 Sleep on my side, Clefable punches its way to victory. It clocks in with a time of 11 minutes and 5 seconds. I teach it Bubble Beam in the place of Sing, and then I go head to head with the rival. You might think that I forgot to heal here, but I actually didn't. I wanted to do this. Clefable is so strong that I won't be needing to heal for a long time. And here's why. After defeating the mandatory trainers on Nugget Bridge, I gain access to an Elixir and an Ether, which can be used to extend my PP until Vermilion City. Then, on the SSN, I get access to the TM for Body Slam, giving me enough moves to manage the third rival and make it to Surge. If I'm low on PP, I can top up with the Ether, but in this case, I'm actually not. I start the Surge fight without healing again. Raichu gets a big turn 1 Thunderbolt, my Body Slam does half, Raichu cuts my attack with Growl, and my second Body Slam paralyzes it. Now, I outspeed and finish Raichu off on turn 3. 18 minutes and 33 seconds. To this point, Clefable is 6 minutes ahead of Wigglytuff. That's a big advantage, especially when you remember that I play these on 4 times game speed. I could make a really rough and approximate estimate, like this is not perfect, but that would be that these two are about 24 minutes of ×1 speed apart. But perhaps the mid-game will allow Wigglytuff to claw itself back into a more competitive position. Or maybe Clefable is going to continue to outperform like most of us expect. But before we find out, I need to talk about Venomoth. I can just never get its typing right in my videos, and all of you are doing a great job correcting me in the comments. Keep it up. After a brief email exchange with someone, I realized that Venomoth is, in fact, the square/space typing. That's really convenient because they're also the sponsor of this video. I've only recently started to learn a thing or two about coding, and even still, the idea of creating a website myself is so intimidating. Luckily for me, Squarespace makes the process of creating a beautiful site easy and intuitive with their website builder. I've personally used it to make sites for my musical compositions, private music lessons, or to advertise musical events that I'm a part of. You can add images, video, and audio to pages, as well as managing scheduling and doing payment processing. If you want or need to make a website, I'd highly recommend Squarespace. If, let's say you're a hairdresser, you could create a beautiful site like this, showing off all of your wonderful work. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/scottsthoughtspokemonto to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Links in the description. Now, picking up after Surge, there's a potential for the strategies employed by these Pokemon to start to diverge. For Wigglytuff, my answer is Brute Force. I teach it Thunderbolt to speed things up against the Slowpoke in Rock Tunnel, Bubble Beam manages the Hiker, and now I'm free of the darkness. I grab the PP up in Celadon, sell some items, get the TM for Ice Beam, and then the TM for Psychic. Pokemon Tower is my next destination. So my videos have sort of become this strange novelty way to speedrun the game, and I'm just playing by my own rules, like it's not official at all. Anyways, one way to play these speedruns is to try and squeeze by at the minimum possible level with an intricate moveset that requires setup and careful planning. It's walking the edge between frequent resets and consistency. If you can find a balance, then you can usually dramatically reduce your time this way. The other is to overlevel, choose powerful moves, and attempt to steamroll every opponent on the first try. This generally takes more time because of the training, but it can actually end up outperforming the other strategy, since sometimes bad luck occurs when you're walking the tightrope, and like in that case a Gen 1 miss can be all you need to completely fall apart. With Wigglytuff, I could try to walk this tightrope with Defense Curl and the Badge Boost glitch, and this was actually my first strategy that I wanted to use with it. But after a few playthroughs I ended up discarding it in favor of the brute force approach. That's largely because having Defense Curl constrains my moveset because there's no way to relearn it if I end up forgetting it. But if I have more flexibility in my moveset, I can have Body Slam, Psychic, Thunderbolt, and Bubble Beam at the same time, and that makes quick work of opponents like this rival. I one-shot all of his team members. A core component of this strategy is obviously overleveling, so I have to decide where in the game I want to do this training. The first location I pick is Pokemon Tower. This is because the ghosts here give a lot of speed stat experience, and Wigglytuff is not fast. After that, I head to Cycling Road, and the trainers here are conveniently clustered together, making them fast to face. Plus, I have Psychic, and it's super effective against all their Pokemon. I head south, and I grab the hidden rare candy and PP up. Here's a quick tip actually, I'm using a Super Repel to get the rare candy, and so then when I pick up this PP up, if I just use it right away, then the inventory cursor resets back to the top. And that allows me, when I exit Cycling Road, to reopen my inventory and quickly get back on my bike. If I don't use the item, then the cursor will still be on my repels, and this caused me to use 1 or 2 extra so many times. And that's actually a big problem when I'm buying the exact number that I need to get through the game with. Completing the Safari Zone before facing Erika has another advantage. Wigglytuff gets more vitamins. My dig point is set to Cerulean anyways, so once I'm finished, I'm right back where I need to be. In the gym, I train. Despite getting super effective damage, Psychic just isn't as good as Body Slam against most of these trainers. With them out of the way, and a lot of additional levels under my belt, I take on Erika. She opens with the beefy Tangela. I go for Body Slam and do more than half. It uses Vine Whip and then faints. Weepinbell's next. Because I've overleveled, it doesn't move first and Body Slam 1 hits it. Gloom is last. It's tankier, so it survives and chooses Sleep Powder, but misses, and Wigglytuff splits at 38 minutes and 32 seconds. Now, the next choice I have is if I should face Fievel or Koga first. Typically, I find that Koga is the right choice here. His badge boosts your speed, and it makes the rival fight less challenging. There are also 2 mandatory trainers in Koga's gym with a total of 6 Pokemon, so you get a decent level boost by going there first. But today I'm choosing the other option. I want to go to Saffron, and this is because I can use the dojo to level up. The trainers here are all so close together, and with Psychic and Body Slam they're easy to defeat. This also gives me a lot of stat experience for my attack stat. With them out of the way, I head to the 10th floor in Sylph. I defeat the Machoke trainer and grab the Carbos and rare candy. Then I take the elevator to the 5th floor. I grab the hidden elixir, fight the Arbok trainer, get the card key, the protein, and then I prepare to face the rival by teaching Wigglytuff Ice Beam. He starts with Sand Slash. I use Ice Beam, it doesn't KO, but Poison Sting is easy to shrug off. Cloister's next. Thunderbolt does more than half, Aurora Beam doesn't lower my attack, that's really lucky, and then I zap the Shellfish into oblivion. Magneton takes 2 Body Slams to finish off, good thing there's no Steel type in Generation 1, and then Kadabra outspeeds. It uses Recover though. Okay, whatever. Flareon's last. It's fairly slow and my level lets me outspeed it. Body Slam does more than half, it uses Ember, I tank it pretty well, and then it goes down to a second Body Slam. The type diversity of my moveset makes the following fights with Jesse and James and Giovanni very easy. So while the footage plays, I'll just tell a little story about what happened to me while I was writing this script. I literally had a moment where I said out loud, Giovanni, like geology because he's a ground type trainer. My brain just really doesn't like language, I guess. I can't believe that it took me this long to realize this connection. Now that I've taken care of the rockets, I grab Mimic, steal Copycat's nugget, and then I sell it for money. Wigglytuff gets some supplements as a result of my nefarious actions. Koga's next. Now, Venomoth has Greet Special, but the Venonats don't, so I can use Psychic against his first 3 Pokemon. Unfortunately, the second one hangs on with a sliver. It uses Psybeam, Wigglytuff's Gargantuan HP just doesn't care, and then the Gnat faints. The third one tries Sleep Powder, and lucky for me it misses. Venomoth, the fighting square type, is last. Body Slam does half damage, Koga wastes a turn with X attack, and then I win. Wigglytuff clocks in with a time of 46 minutes and 2 seconds. Let's see how Clefable does with this portion of the game. After Surge, I make a small mistake. I heal in Cerulean City. I should have just used the Ether when I arrived at Rock Tunnel instead and skipped healing until Celadon. Even healing in the center before Rock Tunnel would be better. That's because I'd have more PP for all of the darkness. Body Slam makes quick work of the Wrapping Lass, and Bubble Beam takes care of the self-destructing Hiker. Now, for strategy, Clefable really only has one option available in my eyes, and that's Brute Force. It could keep minimized to play tactically, but I don't think that's necessary with its stats. Plus, setting that up takes time. Using just strong moves and avoiding setup has the potential to speed every battle up, and I think that with its stats, this approach is going to work out just fine. So I teach it Ice Beam right away. I wasn't lucky enough to catch a Pidgey in Viridian Forest in the early portions of this playthrough, so I have to catch a flyer now. Then I head to Saffron and grab Psychic, which is going to be very useful for Pokemon Tower, which is up next. The rival here is very easy, as is usual. It's just a series of one-hits. Now Clefable's path diverges from Wigglytuff. While the Tuff requires levels to get the ranges it needs against key opponents, Clefable's stats are already good enough. As a result, I skip all the optional trainers in Pokemon Tower and on Cycling Road. I head to the Safari Zone because collecting these items here is just a great idea, and then I train in Erika's gym. Believe me, this isn't absolutely required for Clefable, but it's a really good idea, especially if real time is the important metric that you're shooting for. Without these couple additional levels, opponents later in the game actually become very inconsistent. It's Erika time. Ice Beam doesn't one-hit the Tangela, it uses Vine Whip and then it faints. Weepin' Bell's next. It also survives Ice Beam, but gets frozen. There's no hope for it now. Gloom is last. It survives, puts Clefable to sleep, does a lot of damage with Petal Dance, but it just isn't enough. Clefable emerges victorious, and it gets a time of 31 minutes and 36 seconds. Without a higher level, I'm actually pretty worried about Koga because 2 of his Venonats have Sleep Powder, so I'm deciding to go to Sylph next. I take the same path through here that Wigglytuff did, and then I face the rival. Ice Beam doesn't finish Sandslash off in a single hit, and I pay for this by getting hit by Sand Attack. Oh no, is this fight going to be a problem for Clefable? Cloister hits with Clamp, and that does a lot of damage. I just can't believe that I didn't use Clamp in my Starmie vs. Cloister video. That one needs a modern day Scott's Thoughts rematch. I miss against Magneton, then I paralyze it, we both miss, and then it finally faints. Kadabra is going to move first. It does, uses Disable, and gets Body Slam. Ugh, this couldn't be worse. I guess I'll have to hope for a freeze with Ice Beam, and then I get it. So yeah, Flareon's last. Body Slam does half, it uses Bite, Clefable survives with red health, and finishes the Flareon off. I pick up Mimic, and then I fight the Dojo trainers. I did this after the rival because Clefable has less health, and I was really scared that I would get knocked out in here. With that out of the way, it's time for Koga. In this fight, Clefable's base special really shines. It allows me to one-shot all 3 of the Venonat. Venomoth is last. This fighting space type takes less than half damage from Psychic. I use Body Slam, hoping for more damage, but it isn't enough. However, I can tank all its Psychics very well. So, Koga was a non-issue. Clefable clocks in with a time of 37 minutes and 48 seconds. Because of the training that Wigglytuff required, it's fallen even further behind in these splits. Now, it's easy to think that Wigglytuff is performing poorly, but that just isn't the case. Clefable is quite frankly one of the fastest Pokemon to this point in the game that I've ever used. It is actually the fastest Pokemon to this point in the game. The next fastest time was with Pidgeot, and that was a time of 42 minutes and 18 seconds after Koga. Of course, Pidgeot's performance is a more recent playthrough of mine. My older playthroughs are much worse, but it's still 4 or 5 minutes slower than Clefable. Some of you left comments on my community poll saying that Clefable is one of the best Generation 1 Pokemon, and honestly, right now, it's really proving it. When I finish this series and I look back on Pokemon Yellow, I suspect that I'm going to notice that Blaine was surprisingly one of the harder gym leaders to defeat. For Wigglytuff, that's the case. As a preemptive measure to make this fight a bit easier, I plan to use 5 rare candies before this fight. I don't have any tactics, so I need to just spam Body Slam and hope for paralysis or critical hits. On the first fight, Arcanine takes me out with Fire Blast. In the second fight, I get back to it, but it manages to take me down with, well, Takedown. I was feeling very frustrated at this point, so I used an additional 3 rare candies, which I had actually planned for later on in the playthrough. This choice will make Wigglytuff finish the game at a lower level, and it could impact how challenging the Elite Four and Champion are. I make it back to Arcanine, but this time I don't have an inspiring percentage of health either. It uses Reflect right before my first Body Slam, but Wigglytuff summons all of its strength, slams with its big round body and gets a critical hit, and that takes Arcanine into orange health. Blaine chooses Flamethrower, I cross my fingers, and Wigglytuff survives. I've got one more chance for Body Slam, but it doesn't do enough. However, it paralyzes, so then I move first and Blaine's no more. Wigglytuff clocks in with a time of 49 minutes and 16 seconds. It's Sabrina time. I'm overleveled and I outspeed Abra, making this fight much more consistent. I just need to avoid Kadabra's Kinesis now. Instead, it uses Recover and then faints in a single hit. Her ace Alakazam is last. He uses Reflect, survives, gets an X defend, but Body Slam crits and finishes the fight. Now it's time for Giovanni, quite possibly the most improved gym leader since Red and Blue. The annoying part of this fight is Dugtrio's speed. It goes underground and does a lot of damage to me with Dig before fainting to Ice Beam. Persian is next, and Screech could be devastating here. Luckily it misses and I take it out without having my defense lowered. And that's really good because Giovanni has good AI, so his Nidos are only going to spam Double Kick. Nidoqueen survives, it kicks, and that leaves me with only orange health for the rest of the battle. Fortunately for me, Giovanni uses a guard spec on Nidoking, and I polish it off. Rhydon's last. Ice Beam connects, but it doesn't do enough. Come on. However, he just chooses to use Horn Drill, which fails, and then Wigglytuff wins anyways. The final rival is a nice moment where Wigglytuff feels strong. It feels more like a Wiggly Easy. It doesn't come across in this script, but at this point I was so frustrated using this thing, it honestly feels like it was just designed to be bad. So sweeping the rivals team of 6 at the end of the game is sort of a nice consolation prize after the brutality that was trying to figure out Wigglytuff's route through the mid-game. Everything is different with Clefable though. I used rare candies and faced Sabrina first. This fight is inconsistent, I probably should have done it later, because Abra can really just mess everything up with Flash. But today, Clefable gets all the hits that it needs and it gets a fast victory. Blaine's next, and for him I teach Clefable Rest and Thunder Wave. These are important because I'm trying to get through the game at a much lower level. Rest lets me recover health and heal status conditions. Thunder Wave makes it more consistent by reducing the average number of turns that Blaine's Pokemon hit me while I'm asleep. Synergizing with these two moves is Psychic. It can also lower the opponent's special so that Clefable takes less damage from their Fire-type moves and deals more damage with its own uses of Psychic. And because it's a special attack, it isn't affected by Arcanine's Reflect. You'll probably be writing in the comments about how I removed Body Slam to do this, but honestly, that move just isn't required anymore. Clefable has higher special anyways. It clocks in with a time of 43 minutes and 2 seconds. Giovanni starts his fight by being really annoying and setting up Sand Attack. I still manage to hit the Dugtrio and knock it out. Persian gets a guard spec instead of using double team, so I'm really lucky about that. Nidoqueen's next. Ice Beam's super effective and it one-shots it. But then, because of a strange roll I guess, Nidoking survives and uses Double Kick. Ugh. Luckily, I tank it well and I move on to the Rhydon. Ice Beam's too much for it and Clefable clocks in with a time of 44 minutes and 41 seconds. That is an incredible Giovanni split. And Clefable shows no signs of slowing down either. I add Thunderbolt to its moveset for the final rival fight before the league. Ice Beam one-hits the Sandslash and the Execute. I accidentally use Ice Beam against the Cloister. There's gotta be at least one move selection mistake in my videos after all. Despite being confused, I move and take Cloister out with Thunderbolt. Magneton's a 2-hit. I freeze the Kadabra. That's really nice. And then I also freeze the Flareon. Yes, also, in Generation 1, fire does not resist ice. So with that, both of the Pokemon are off to the league. Right before Lorelei's Chamber, Clefable's at 48 minutes and 20 seconds, while Wigglytuff is at 55 minutes and 10 seconds. They're both quite fast to this point, but Clefable is in a different class altogether. However, this isn't over yet. How are they going to perform against the 4 strongest trainers and the worst hiker in the game? Let's find out. For Wigglytuff, it's time to let go of Body Slam. Mimic is going to be far more useful from here on out. Against Lorelei, I use Thunderbolt to knock the Dugong out as fast as possible. It takes 2 turns. Next is Cloister. I was hoping my overleveled Tuff would be enough to one-shot the Cloister, but it isn't. Luckily, it doesn't freeze me with Ice Beam. Slowbro's next, and this is where Mimic comes in. I can steal Amnesia and set up so that Thunderbolt will one-shot the Lapras. Also, it really helps Wigglytuff shrug off Jinx's Ice Punch. I heal with Rest, and then I finish the fight off. Now, let's talk about Wigglytuff and its cute little hair. I don't think that Wigglytuff is the hiking type. It's more of a stay at home and get a makeover type of Pokemon. But clearly that doesn't harm its competitive chances against this hiker. Against Agatha, I experienced something that I never have seen before. Yeah, like, is this a known glitch, or is this like some glitch with my ROM or something? Like, I don't know. I use Mimic in an attempt to steal Substitute. She switches to Golbat, and Mimic gets used on the Golbat, so I have to steal one of its moves. I choose Wing Attack, and then I open my moveset, and Psychic has been replaced with Wing Attack? I still have Mimic? Like, what is this? So I really wanted to have Psychic to defeat her. I actually reset because of that, and I try this again. This time I successfully steal Substitute. In retrospect, I think that I would have been able to win with the previous Wing Attack Thunderbolt moveset with Substitute on my side. Either way, Wigglytuff defeats her with relative ease. Lance is next. Here, I can mimic Hyper Beam. Thunderbolt doesn't quite knock the Gyarados out. The Dragonair are one-hits with Blizzard, but Aerodactyl is what I'm most scared for, because it's fast. Wing Attack does a bit of damage, Blizzard hits, and it faints. All that remains is Dragonite. You might ask why I mimicked Hyper Beam because I haven't used it yet. Well, it's in the case that Blizzard misses too much. But in this fight, it doesn't, and I take a quick victory. 59 minutes and 57 seconds. That's a sub-hour time for Wigglytuff's Lance split. That's really good, but the champion still remains. For Clefable, at Lorelei, I replaced Thunderwave with Thunderbolt. I have Rest in case I need to steal, but beyond that, my special stat allows me to speed through her team until the Jinx. There isn't really a great option here with this moveset, but 3 Thunderbolts is enough. Lapras is a 2-hit, so I have to tank a Blizzard, and then I finish it off. So, I have Psychic, and a great special stat. Yeah, Agatha is next. Again, I teach Mimic before this fight. Substitute is just so powerful. Confuse Ray and Supersonic don't work when it's in place, and that means that the only way that I can really lose is if Hypnosis hits. And even then, Clefable would have to be feeling particularly sleepy. But today, the final Gengar goes for Psychic. It does break my Substitute, but my Psychic gets a critical hit and finishes the fight off. For Lance, I teach Blizzard. With Clefable, my approach is more to the point. Dragonite takes neutral damage from Thunderbolt, so I skip mimicking Hyper Beam and just attempt my sweep. Thunderbolt knocks Gyarados out. Blizzard takes the Dragonair 1 and Dragonair 2 down in a single hit. Aerodactyl time. It outspeeds, uses Swift, deals a small amount of damage, and then Blizzard knocks the prehistoric bat out. I know that it's not a bat. Please just get mad at me in the comments if you must. I use Blizzard on Dragonite, it misses, and Lance gets a Hyper Beam in. It does a lot, but now I have 2 turns to knock the dragon out. Blizzard hits, and I'm moving on to the champion. Clefable's Lance split is 51 minutes and 8 seconds. That is so incredible. So is the champion going to be tough for Wigglytuff? Or is it going to be Wiggly easy for Wigglytuff? I mimic Sandslash turn 1. It's not always going to crit because my speed is awful, but a base 70 power normal move is good for Wigglytuff to have anyways. Sandslash uses Fury Swipes for a small amount of damage, and then a Snowstorm takes it out. Alakazam outspeeds, uses Psychic, and does so much with a crit, and then Slash knocks it out. I got a crit right when I needed it. I use Blizzard against Exeggutor, hoping for a freeze, but instead I miss. The Pineapple Tree stomps, gets a crit, and Wigglytuff just barely hangs on. I heal with Rest, giving him time to set up Leech Seed. I hate this move so much, especially in this fight. I wake up, strike back with Blizzard, and then I get stuck healing for a little bit. Finally, I freeze the Exeggutor, and that gives me the opening that I need to heal and finish it off. Slash almost knocks the Magneton out. It uses Swift, and then I take it down. Thunderbolt's on my moveset just to manage the Cloister. It doesn't one-hit it, and thankfully it goes for Spike Cannon. Flareon is all that remains. To be safe, I heal with Rest. And then Flamethrower crits, taking me back into orange health in a single turn. Leech Seed damage, Flareon quick attacks, and then I wake up. But it has one more move left first. And an inch from defeat, Wigglytuff braces itself for the end. But Flareon uses Reflect, and that gives me the time that I need to rest again. It chooses Fire Spin next, and this is honestly great, especially when I'm waiting out the sleep counter. I wake up, strike back over 2 turns, and Flareon faints. Wigglytuff has defeated Pokemon Yellow with a time of 1 hour, 2 minutes, and 27 seconds. I had 3 resets, finishing at level 67 with a game time of 4 hours and 2 minutes. So those are the metrics for Clefable to beat, and it has over 10 minutes to do it. Once again, I mimic Flash, my higher speed is going to guarantee crits this time. Blizzard finishes Sandslash off, Alakazam outspeeds, and then gets 1 hit. Exeggutor's next, and while it usually slows the fight down, today it's a simple 2-hit. Magneton is the same, and Cloister goes down to 1 Thunderbolt. Flareon is all that remains in Clefable's way. And to this point, it's been slashing and zapping and freezing its way through his entire team with ease. Flareon attacks first with priority. I use Slash, Flareon survives with a Sliver, but I outspeed and finish it off. Clefable clocks in with a time of 52 minutes and 9 seconds. That is my fastest finish ever. I had 2 resets, finished at level 65 with a game time of 3 hours and 26 minutes. I think it's pretty clear who the winner is, but before I officially announce it, I want to discuss briefly some alternate strategies that I tried during my other playthroughs. In total, I did 6 complete playthroughs with each Pokemon. I spent around 3 hours testing the Brock split so that I'd have an optimized route for both of these two. That was a really hard portion of the game, quite literally. I also really invested in defense curl strategies for playthrough 2, 3, 4, and 5 with Wigglytuff, and these playthroughs did not go well. While I can make it through the game with that strategy, it's just wildly inconsistent because it takes so long to set up with a slow Pokemon, and healing using Rest takes forever. If Wigglytuff learned Recover, I think that this would be a different story. I tried several variants with Defense Curl. I tried pairing it with like Thunder Wave, pairing it with Rest, pairing it with Body Slam, or focusing all my attention on buying Carbos to outspeed. With this strategy, the best time that I was able to get was 1 hour and 6 minutes, but if things go wrong and it ends up resetting a couple times on each fight, then the time ends up skyrocketing up to like 1 hour and 14 minutes or 1 hour and 16 minutes. I do want to go back though and mention one specific thing about Wigglytuff's initial moveset, because I think it's pretty cool. It's the interaction between Disable, Sleep, Full Heal, and Bide. As you probably know, in Generation 1, the items that a trainer has are all defined by an integer, which applies to every Pokemon on that trainer's team. So Brock has 5 full heals for each one of his Pokemon. He'll retroactively use them 100% of the time that his Pokemon are affected by a status condition. When he uses these items, it just replaces his Pokemon's current move with the item instead. However, if Onyx uses Bide, he won't actually use a full heal until it unleashes energy. So Sing works against Onyx when it starts to Bide. This can buy a little bit of time, but making this interaction even better is the fact that you can occasionally disable Bide when Onyx falls asleep. If this occurs, Brock has to first wake up. Then Bide needs to be available for use, so Disable needs to wear off. And then after that, Bide's counters have to start ticking down. I had some outrageous fights against Brock where he didn't do anything for over like 10 turns in a row. Obviously though, this isn't great because Wigglytuff still have to spend most of these turns depleting its PP in the hopes of using Struggle. This strategy is really interesting, but it isn't faster than the approach that I ended up taking. However, it was noteworthy enough and I thought it was funny enough that I should include it somewhere. For Clefable, I did consider using Metronome more aggressively in the early game to cut time, but that felt really bad. In the end, I just do need to complete playthroughs for these videos. I don't want to be gambling on every fight. Every fight I could use Explosion and then I would just never get a playthrough done. Gambling against Brock felt like the best compromise. I also considered using Minimize with Clefable. While this would remove the training in Erika's gym and the training in the dojo, it doesn't really save time anywhere else because Clefable is just fine without setup. I think that the extra turns using Minimize might actually bloat the playtime slightly, so overall I'm really happy with the approach that I ended up taking. Here's a summary of all my playthrough data. Clefable's results clearly trend towards better and better performances. Normally I get a big improvement between my first attempt and my second attempt, and here it gets a 12-minute improvement. So yeah, that's basically what I expected. And from there, over the next 4 playthroughs, I shave roughly another 8 minutes off. Wigglytuff it was tough, and it's really not the same story. When I clocked in at 1 hour, 29 minutes, and 23 seconds on my first playthrough, I was sure that my second attempt would take at least 20 minutes off the clock. But instead, I only got 8.5 minutes off. My third playthrough was actually significantly faster. It got 1 hour, 6 minutes, and 52 seconds. But then attempts 4 and 5 both had really bad finishes. I felt so frustrated after those 2 playthroughs. This was because using Defense Curl exposed me to many more critical hits along the way, and I had many more resets as a result. And it's really painful resetting after you've used a bunch of Defense Curls and Rests to get to that point in the fight, and then like Nidoqueen just like critical hits you with Double Kick 2 times in a row and you have to reset. So that was the main motivation I had behind switching my strategy towards training more. It really helped add both consistency and speed to the playthrough. It's been obvious for a while, probably for most of you since I announced this video, but the winner is Clefable, by a giant margin. It's my first sub-hour time ever, and it beats that by a significant margin. It also felt more intuitive to use. The only downside to it is it's not the most consistent in the fights. If avoiding resets is the goal, this strategy, or Clefable in general, just isn't the perfect Pokemon. Still, it showed an incredible performance, and it's well deserving of the highest spot in my tier list. Wigglytuff did quite well in my final playthrough, but it was really unintuitive and it required a lot of grinding. Still, its time's quite respectable, so I'm placing it in the top of the A tier. If I had a better solution for Brock, I think that it might be S-class material. If you want to experience the first playthroughs that I did with these Pokemon, I'm uploading my live reactions to Patreon as some exclusive content. By the way, I never want to do a playthrough with Wigglytuff ever again. The level of frustration that I experienced during playthrough 4 and 5, like I've mentioned it before, but like honestly, it's probably the first time that I like a Pokemon less after doing a video on it. Today, I'm checking off 2 Pokemon in my challenge decks. I'm getting closer and closer to the halfway point. Like, subscribe, ring the chime echo, and leave a comment because I gotta read them all. Thanks so much to Squarespace for sponsoring the video. Check them out if you need to make a web page, and don't forget to use my code. Link is in the description. Thanks to everyone who's supporting me on Patreon. I really appreciate you. And if you're just watching and you've made it this far, you're incredible. Now, it's bloopers time. With how this is going, I don't know if there's going to be any bloopers today. I'm feeling good. It's like I had like one mess up. It's on like blooper tier. But like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to get a lot. Okay, let's do this. As a reward, Misty gives me the TM for Bubble Beam. Yeah, that's the right line. Why did I just think that was the wrong line? That's the right line. Surge sends out Raichu, and there's no way that I'm going to move first. And apparently he wants to keep it that way. He uses X-Speed, Wigglytuff Body Slams, and Wigglytuff... Oh my gosh, Wigglytuff twice in the same sentence. Terrible! Then, on the SSN, I get access to the TM for Bubble Slam. Not Bubble Slam. With Wigglytuff, I can try and walk the tightrope. Tightrope. Yeah, I got it. Tightrope. After that, I head to Cycling Road, and the trainers here are conveniently clustered together. She opens with the beefy Tangela. I can't see Tangela. At least I don't say Tangela anymore. That was bad. Tangela. He uses Psybeam, Wigglytuff's Gargantuan. I should have just used the Ether when I arrived at Rock Tunnel instead of... It survives, puts Clefable to sleep, does a lot of pedal dance. Yeah, it does. Now, it's easy to think that Wigglytuff is performing poorly, but that just isn't the case. Poorly. I always have problems with that. Some of you left comments on my community poll. It's a poll. But Wigglytuff summons all its strengths. Ice Beam 1 hits the Sandslash and the Execute. I wrote Executor. It's not Executor. He's got the awful seed things in this fight. Cleflables. Sandslash uses Fury Swipes for a small amount. I got trapped again. Swipes for a small amount. It's hard.